Hello and welcome. At last, we're getting an answer about this year's exams and how the grades are going to be worked out if you're not sitting an exam. Everything comes from gov.uk, which you can check out if you wish. I'm going to take you through it and highlight what I think is the most important information. So first up, the government's priority is now to ensure effective students can move on as planned to the next stage of their lives. Now this is fantastic news because it means the government wants to get as many Year 11 students into college or apprenticeship as possible. So they're not going to be looking to give you grades which are too strict. They want to give you a fair grade to give you a fair chance. And if it comes down to a toss-up between being slightly generous and slightly strict, they're much more likely to opt for generous. Now, of course, they don't want teachers just rewarding students that they like, students that they get on with. Every teacher in the universe tries to be fair, but also every teacher has unconscious bias. You know, some students we prefer to others, don't we? So here's the ruling. They would like students to be awarded a grade which fairly reflects the work that they have put in. So your next question is, how do we judge the work that I've already put in, especially when I probably haven't worked that hard for my mocks compared to how I'll work in the exams? How will the government reflect the work that I would put in, which they can't measure now? Oh, there's an answer to that too. So it's not an entirely happy answer, because if you're not happy with the grade that you get, and you will get this grade soon, by the way, you'll get it in July, so if you're not happy with the grade that you'll get, you will have the option to sit the exam early in the next academic year. So that will probably be September or October if you think you need a higher grade. So precisely how your teacher will calculate your grade is not entirely clear yet. Let's look at the advice. The exam boards will be asking teachers who know their students well to submit their judgment about the grade that they believe the student would have received if the exams had gone ahead. So obviously most teachers would expect their students to improve after the mocks, and so your teachers will build in that extra improvement. Now it's also true that teachers, and I find this to be really true, especially of English teachers, they're really reluctant to give really top grades to their students in the mocks, because then they fear that the student will switch off and spend their time studying something else like maths or science or Spanish or whatever. And so the grade that you've actually got for your mocks, especially if it's a good grade, is probably lower than your teacher actually thinks you deserve. So they're going to try and give you a higher grade. Now, at the other end, if your teacher's been giving you a 3 instead of a 4, again, the same thing is possible. They would be worried that if they gave you a mark that put you just into the grade 4, you might chill out a bit and then not get the grade 4 in the real thing. So my experience of English teachers is that they do mark harshly in the mocks. I don't, you might be lucky or unlucky, depending how you look at it, if you've got a teacher like me who will base their prediction much more realistically on what they think you did on the mocks. But whichever teacher you've got, including me, I would still add quite a bit extra, at least half a grade really, that I'd expect my students to improve by the time that they did the real exams. And the other thing that will count in your favour here is your teachers are probably likely to think you'll make more improvement in literature than in language, so they're much more likely to improve your literature grade. Now, in the current system, schools and therefore teachers are judged on the progress that students make. So this would give an incentive to teachers to artificially inflate the grade that they want to give you. Well, to get rid of that, the government have said, look, we're going to get rid of league tables. We're not going to do that this year. And therefore, schools are not going to be judged on their progress. And that means teachers won't feel judged on the progress of their class. So this will allow them to be much more honest. Now, because teachers are, by and large, lovely people, and I do mean that, they are, most teachers will want to give you the benefit of the doubt. So, if there's a 60-40 chance that you would get a grade 5 instead of a grade 6, your teacher might well flip that and say, well, instead of it being a 60% chance you're going to get a grade 5, I'm going to say it's actually a 60% chance that you'll get a grade 6 and I'll bump you up. Now, in theory, what will happen there is that across the country, there will be too many good grades. Now, the exam board hasn't said that they just won't trust teachers, but they will refine the data that teacher gives them by looking at your prior attainment. So exam boards will then combine this information with other relevant data, including prior attainment. Now, prior attainment here doesn't mean your mock grades. That would be the other relevant data. It means how you did in your SATs in year 6. So if you sat those SATs, the government can predict, and does predict, what sort of grades everyone in the country should get based on everybody last year who got the same SATs grades. So there is an inbuilt check here, and this could disadvantage you. So for example, my own daughter excelled once she got older. When she was your age, she did pretty well at GCSEs. And then once she got to A-level, she did fantastically well. But when she was in primary school, not so much. Now, a lot of you will be in that position, and this calculation might, I'm not saying it will, but it might bring your mark down. Equally, if you're a lazy kid who's not really worked very hard since year 6, you might find your grade goes up a bit because the government's expecting you to do in line with how you did in year 6. So this will influence the exam board's decision making. So this is what we're told the exam boards will do. They will look at the distribution of grades and make sure it follows a similar pattern to that of other years. Now let's see what that means. Right, well, these are the rough percentages from last year and the year before. So roughly 20% of students get grades 7 to 9. So they're the top 20%. And roughly 25% get grades 1 to 3. And the individual grades are just worked out on a ranking. If you imagine a line with the top grade here and the bottom grade here, or the bottom mark, then the government just go through and they cut off a line here saying, yep, that's 25%. So grade 3 will be here, grade 2 will be there, and grade 1 will be there. And then at the top, yep, grade 9 will be here, grade 8 here, grade 7 there. And there's my cut off of the top 20%. So the same sort of formula will apply. So it may be, for example, that teachers love you all. Of course we do. And we decide that 30% of students should get grades 7 to 9. Well, then the government will look at that and say, well, we ain't going to have 30%. We might have 21%, but we're not going to have 30. So they'll just rank everyone along that line and just take the top 21% of marks that teachers have given their students. So some students will be given a grade 7 by teachers, and Ofqual and the exam boards will go, no, we're not going to do that. Or, it could happen the other way around, couldn't it? That your teachers only recommend 18% of the country to get the top grades, and then Ofqual would say, no, we're going to up that by another 2%. So we'll take the best grade 6s and give them a grade 7 and so on. So that's how the results will be calculated. And for some students, and I would say very few, it will mean that you'll want to retake and get a different grade. So this is what Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, has to say today My priority is now to ensure no young person faces a barrier when it comes to moving on to the next stage of their lives, whether that's further or higher education, an apprenticeship or a job. So the overwhelming message is the government is on your side and it's going to try and give you a grade that's going to get you into those next steps. Now, there are lots of students on my channel who are frankly gutted that they can't sit these exams because they know their revision has been brilliant. And so if that's you, Gavin Williamson says you may nevertheless feel disappointed that you haven't been able to sit your exams. So you will have the opportunity as soon as schools are open again. And if you don't want to do that, you can wait until the summer of 2021 if you really want to sit an exam, perhaps because you need it for a subject you're studying at A-level, for example. You might be doing psychology and need a science, which you didn't get this year, but you'll have the opportunity to retake it later. And then the really good news, which I mentioned before, but you might not have picked it up, the government really want to give you these grades by the end of July. That's a whole month earlier than students have had to wait before, which is, of course, super news, because if you don't like your grade and you want to appeal, you've got longer to think about it. Or you might think, actually, yes, that's a fair reflection of my grade now, but actually, if I can take it again in September and October, well, I've got nothing else to do. I might as well revise now and go for an even higher grade. So some of you might want to do that, and the good news is you can. So I really hope that fills you with optimism. I'm very optimistic about this. Do stay with me on my channel. I don't get paid by schools because they're shut. I'm not employed as a teacher anymore. I'm employed as a consultant. So I will earn nothing, no money, 0 pennies until September. However, if you let the adverts run on any of my videos, then YouTube pays me like a little bit of money if the adverts run. You don't have to watch them, but trust me, it'll make a big difference to me and it'll make a big difference to my wife. I'm also going to have a look at tutoring if you fancy a bit of that. I don't know, I've not done it online before. We'll see if it works. Hopefully you're feeling much more relaxed about your exams because there are a lot more important things to worry about in life now. Don't get bored. Hope to see you soon on my channel.